So, welcome everyone. Thrilled that everyone can make it out here today for Stellan's lecture. I wanted, first of all, to introduce, so one of the sponsors of this is the Sustainable Cities Initiative, SCI, of which I'm a co-director, along with Mark Schlossberg as co-director. And many of you might have heard, or some of you might have heard of SCI because we run the Sustainable City Year program, where we work with a city each year. In this case, this year it's Medford. But we also do all sorts of other things having to do with research, having to do with training, and then one of the things we do, one of the programs we have is the Expert in Residence program. And the Expert in Residence program is, as opposed to just having people come in for one lecture one night and be done, the idea is that we bring these people over, really experts, prominent people in the field, and they spend 3 days with us. And that includes, so there's a lecture here, there's a lecture in Portland. We just did a session with professionals and people from the city earlier today. Works with the studios. We're working with Brooks Studio today. In Portland, we're working with a whole bunch of different firms and with students. So the idea is to really get as much out of these people, these experts when they come. But it's a really great opportunity for all of us to engage, and we're really thankful to be able to have this program. I want to make one plug, which is that for those of you who are students, we have a course called 10 by 10. This is the first course that SCI is actually a new course that we're offering, which is it's on Fridays from 12 to 1, and we have 10 different experts from 10 different fields, one person per week coming and talking about what sustainability means in their field. So people from law, from business, urban design, planning, a whole range, journalism, a whole range of different people. So this is it's easy for you to come by on Friday, spend an hour and kind of hear these different ideas and how it might relate to the work that you're doing. It's the course number is AAA 199. Before I introduce Stellan, I have a list of thank yous to give. As this is not just one lecture, person comes in and out, there's a lot of people who are helping coordinate and a lot of different bits of funding that have helped make this happen. So I'd like to first of all thank EHDD. They're an architecture and design firm in San Francisco that's been we're very happy to have sponsoring the Expert in Residence program. DGF in Portland and Jan Willems has been a great support as well and is helping organize things for us up there. CH2M Hill and James McGrath is also helping organize events for us up in Portland. The City of Portland, Mark Raggett and Carlisle are helping us. Rob Brokaw Architects, as I mentioned before, hosted us today during lunchtime with a number of people from the city. So Karen Knudsen and John Rowell, very thankful for the organizing they did. Land Current Landscape Architects and Anita Van Espert helped actually organize a lot of this at the beginning. Unfortunately, she can't be here because of a family emergency, but she helped do a lot of the early planning and early connection with Stellan. The Department of Architecture Lectures Committee. So this is one of the Department of Architecture lectures. And Philip Speranza and Amy Pinkston have been fantastic in helping us organize all the logistics to go around this. For those of you who are, actually anyone but students particularly, tomorrow at noon in room 206, the AIAS and ASLA are going to have a session, a lunch session. They're bringing in pizza, and Stellan will be there to talk about anything you want to talk about. So come with questions. Hopefully some of this, the work that he'll be showing will inspire some thoughts that you can go and flesh out with him tomorrow. So we'd like to thank Reagan Greenhill and Carol Stafford as helping organize that. From AIA Southwest Oregon, Jennifer Ridley helped us with a lot of the outreach and organizing. Some of the funding is also coming from the AAA, and Brooke was nice enough to help make that happen from the Dean's office, Brooke Miller, and from OLIS, Vicki Elmer helped put this together. So you can see it's a huge consortium of people to help make these events happen, but we get hopefully a lot of things out of it. Two final people that I'd really like to thank. Denny Ruggieri from the Landscape Architecture Department was the person who kind of made all this happen in a way. So he first reached out to SCI and said, Stellan, we're interested in having him here. Could we have him for a lecture? And we said, well, we'll take that and up you 2.5 more days. And so we're very thankful that he offered the connection, and we're thankful to have Stellan here. And then finally, Carol Stafford, who's GRF at SCI, who's helped organize all of this. So thank you so much. So one of the things, there's a reception after this lecture, just out there in front of Student Services, and we hope that you'll be able to join us to talk about this work and talk to Stellan. So to give Stellan a brief introduction, he's a partner at Tengboom Architects. It's a very large firm, 550 people, with offices all through Sweden and an office as well in Finland. Their main office is in Stockholm, which is where Stellan's based. His work, as you'll see, he specializes in urban design, urban planning, and building design and sustainability in all of those areas, and he's a kind of internationally known expert on these issues. Early on, he worked with Ralph Erskine and in Sweden, and then also with the Regional Planning Association in New York, for those of you who know that organization. He's got 2 Masters of Architecture, one from the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm and one from the Royal University College of Fine Arts. One of the premier projects that many of us who do urban design and sustainable urban design look at is the Hammarby project south of in the southern area of Stockholm, and he'll be talking about that today. He's been involved since 1997. The project's still somewhat ongoing and has been nationally, internationally awarded, and is one of the benchmarks of how you do sustainable urban design at a kind of district level. And so he'll be talking more about that today. He's worked throughout Sweden, Norway, the UK, and is doing work right now in Russia, or done work in Russia and is doing work right now in China. He's the editor of a white paper on rethinking cities from the International Federation of Consulting Engineers. I think he'll be talking a little bit about this. An unbelievable, impressive list of awards, which I will not go through here, but national and international awards. And has lectured extensively both in academic circles and in professional circles internationally, including discussing his work with leaders such as the President of China and Al Gore. So we are very fortunate to have him both here in Oregon and spending as much time as he is with us in Oregon. So with that, I would like to welcome Stellan and thank him for coming over.
You turned on the light. Thank you very much. Thank you for the introduction. I'm going to run through a presentation with slides about Hammarby, but also about what we are calling the urban toolbox, and a little bit about China, and we'll see if I can keep this together or not. But anyhow, it's a lot of slides. This is a front page of an Italian magazine. I think it's a contractors magazine. Good. And it's about Hammarby. And this is the nice poster. I'm very proud of this one. A few words about Stockholm and Sweden. We are high up in the north. And as we are high up in the north, we have to plan. Otherwise, there will be no Swedes. So we are at the level of Anchorage or something. So it's a difference from here. Sweden is fairly large. Coming to area, has 9.5 million inhabitants. Almost 2 million inhabitants has immigration background. And there's one thing to say about Sweden. We have had peace since 1814. This is remarkable. This is lucky. We have natural resources, forests, mining, etc. And Stockholm is located here. I'm coming from Tengboom Architecture firm, which happened to be the oldest firm in Northern Europe. As maybe there is a UK firm older. We are founded in 1906. So it's taken a while to become 550 architects. Professor Tengboom designed a lot of prestigious buildings in Stockholm, and one of them is the concert hall of Stockholm, where the Nobel Prize ceremony is every year. The biggest project Tengboom is working with is this hospital project, New Karolinska, which is the biggest hospital project in Northern Europe, and we do 50% of the design. And that is together with the other company, White, which is in our size. I'm myself working as an architect and an urban designer, and I'm responsible for the design of this little industrial building, which is a BREEAM certified building, and it's containing equipment for transport of garbage, vacuum transport of garbage. And it has a green wall, for instance. It's a lot of paperwork with BREEAM, and BREEAM is British. But there is no similar system in Sweden. This is a plan, and this is the equipment we are keeping. Will we keep in this building? It's under construction. So that's one side of sustainability. I'm working with this project right now in Xi'an, the first capital of China, the terracotta city. It's 2 square kilometers big. It's the same size as the Hammarby project. And I'm engaged in this sort of organization which is working with the symbiosis city. It's another way to express sustainable city. It's many ways to express it. And there is brochures that is possible to load down on the internet under symbioscity.org in English. And I'm a member of the International Federation of Consulting Engineers Committee on Sustainability. FIDIC is the organization. And the organization is organizing companies in 95 countries. And we have done a report about sustainability. We call this Rethink Cities. And what we are saying is cities are very important and can contribute to the climate issues that we are facing. Why rethink cities? There's a lot of figures about cities, so I'm not going to tire you with all those figures because I'm sure you have heard them. But a few anyhow. There is almost 200,000 people moving into cities every day globally. It's over 40,000 only in China. And cities are very much more on the agenda, and we have a lot of problems with this. That the cities is covering about 2 or 3% of the land area, and using 75% of the energy and emitting 80% of the carbon dioxide, which is a problem, but it also is a possibility to organize cities better. Carbon dioxide is still growing despite the discussion we have. United States is emitting a little bit more than 3 times more carbon dioxide per person a year as we do in Sweden. And there's reasons for that. It has to do with generation of electricity, but it will also have to do with cities. I'm coming back to that. Sweden is emitting about 5.3 tons per person a year, which is too high, but in an international way, it's low. China is emitting 7.2 tons, UK about 8 tons, etc. And Stockholm in itself, Greater Stockholm, is emitting about 3.4 tons or something. But you can't compare a country with a city. This is the GNP in Sweden. It's going up, thanks to that. And at the same time, the carbon dioxide is going down, and it's also going down in EU. This with carbon dioxide is new on the media agenda, but it's not new at all, really. 1859, there was a British-Irish researcher started to talk about there was a connection between carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and the temperature. There was a newspaper, there was an article in a magazine in London, 1896, by a Swedish researcher about the connection between carbon dioxide growth and the atmosphere and the temperature. He overestimated the rise of the temperature. but still he had some points to do that. And this is an article I found over internet, of course, but in New York Times from 1981. That's some years ago, and said study finds warming trends that could raise sea levels. So this is nothing new at all. Cities are very different. I'm sure you have seen this, coming to energy. You have American cities here, you have European cities here, you got Hong Kong down here. And you should be down here. So, I mean, we have to work on that. It matters a lot. How much oil do we have? When we started with the Hammarby project, I'm coming to the Hammarby project later, a barrel of oil costed $20. And today it's, I think, $108 or $109. And like 10 years from now, what do I know? It would be probably $200 or something. So we can't rely on cheap fossil fuel. So that's another thing, even though we have fracking. I read this, and it's not very difficult to read. It's the IPCC report from September, October, something. It's a lot of facts about this. I can recommend it. Another thing also have to do with cities. Infrastructure investments are going down in many countries in Europe, including Sweden. I don't know for US, but there might be the same thing here, that infrastructure investments are going down. At the same time that infrastructure can help us to work better with the climate. And this is what UN environmental program call it, plan resource efficient cities. So that is their approach to this. Symbiote city, sustainable cities, smart cities, resource efficient cities. This is one of the most important person I have met, and I met him in Hammarby, and I don't know what he thinks about this, but it's very important that people like the Chinese president is coming to look at your eco districts. And I'm sure you saw that Mr. John Kerry was talking about the climate threats. It's more serious than the threat from terrorists. This is, I would say, I'm traveling a lot, and it's not the Swedish cities that are the role model for urbanization. I can assure you that. And this is Sydney, and I think in China or South America or South Africa or wherever it is, it's much more this kind of city that is the role model. But Sydney and Melbourne and other cities are very much into fossil fuel and emitting carbon dioxide. It's very beautiful to have a house of your own, 2 cars, and have almost walking distance into the CBD. But that's not possible. Not for many. The FIDIC report, the Rethink Cities, and the work that we are doing in Sweden, we could call it a holistic and integrated approach to planning, where we combine the urban design, the infrastructure, development and coordination, and environmental performance. And I'm going to show what I mean with that. If we're talking about sustainability, we have the ecological, social, and economical functions. We know that. And if we look first to the ecological one and to cities, I have a list of 10 different toolkits here. That's the urban function in itself. It's not only the building, if we have green buildings or not. It's the urban function. It can be efficient, it can be beautiful, it can be energy consuming, whatever. Cities are very different. Traffic and transport, that's obvious. Landscape and biodiversity has very much to do with urban function. Building design, we're working a lot with this, but in Sweden we are renewing the building stock with new buildings with 1.5% per year. So it's going to take many years to renew it all. Of course, we are refurbishing buildings as well. So to do green buildings is not enough. We have to work in this level as well. Energy generation, distribution and use, water and sewage treatment, where sewage can be a resource, waste treatment, information communication technology. There's a strong movement from companies about this right now. Administrative methods and lifestyle and smart living. That's 10 different items in my urban toolbox. I'll give you some examples. Hammarby, I'm coming back to that. This. And this include more than nice housing, like green bridges, biogas, etc. This is another compact city. A lot of people living here. There's Duyun in southern China, but it's not strong coming to infrastructure. There's more example. You have informal housing in Cairo. It's not strong coming to very much at all. And the favelas in Sao Paulo, for instance, is not strong coming to infrastructure. But there are a program to improve the infrastructure in the favelas, which is interesting. Building design, that's green building. It's obvious. The CH2 building in Melbourne, which houses the planning department of Melbourne. It's using like 15% of a normal office building. Green construction from Santa Monica. There is examples just a few hundred meters from here. This is a very typical multi-residential building from India. It could be in China as well, where it is, I think it can house good apartments, but it must also have a role to play in the city and the street life, etc. I'm coming back to that. And also the heritage. There's a really long of Shanghai with almost no infrastructure at all, but great architecture. Maybe not great standard, but great architecture. This another example is from South Korea. There's a similar British example, where there's sort of toolbox on the building level with the photovoltaic panels and well-insulated buildings, with envelope windows, etc. This is from the President's Office of Green Growth in South Korea. Bedset in London is similar to this. Same team. There is a lot of rating and certification tools. I mentioned BREEAM. You got LEED here. There is about 250 or 300 of those around the globe, which is problematic. And sometimes they are very complicated to use. But they bring up those questions into the boardrooms, which are very important. And the BREEAM is the biggest one. And then I think there came the French one. LEED is the most well-known one. And then we have also good architecture. This is a Danish example. It's a part of the toolbox. Traffic and transportation and public transportation. This is the metro system in Stockholm, running trains on green electricity. This is a BRT system. You got it here as well. And this one is from Medellin, the former drug capital of Colombia. It's a nice city today. And this is from Santa Monica, light rail under construction from Colorado Avenue. It's very nice to see that. And many examples. Coming to vehicles, there's many examples. This is more for fun because there's two bikers sitting in here. So had been good yesterday where we were biking around. And a lot of vehicles. This is also from Santa Monica. This is a Renault. This bus is charged with the power at the end stops. stops there for 10 minutes, and then we can make it to the other end stop. So we're going to see more of this. This one is running on biogas from the former city dump in a small town in Sweden. Bicycles, that's central here in Eugene. This is from Amsterdam. I'm impressed of China in many ways, and one is the number of the proportion of electrical two-wheelers. There's many more than it's possible to see in the United States or Europe. And also, it's one reason they are popular. You can charge this in your office and make your employer to pay for the for the fuel. This one cost about, I don't know, $200 or something, if you buy it in China. Bike sharing. I don't know if you have it here. Yes, yes. Landscape and biodiversity, back to the toolbox. It's very important. I was impressed by this one. Changed in the whole neighborhood. It's well known also in Sweden. This is Hammarby, stormwater, canal, very nice in the park. You can actually skate here sometimes. Not this winter. Here it's a winter day with only 2 smoking chimneys. And those 2 plants are heating all buildings here. And this plant is running on sort of garbage, and this one on with heat pumps and bio oil and biomasses. It's another example on energy. District heating, we're very much into district heating in Sweden, but I think it's an American invention that exists much longer in New York than it exists in Sweden. This is from Cairo, district heating and district cooling. It's impressive. You can connect it with geothermal energy. You can store the heat here in the district heating system, for instance. Back to China. This is back to Duyun in southern China. This is from my hotel room. Solar thermal panels all over. You can't find a country, in a Western country, with solar thermal panels that you can find in China. It's very impressive. Water and sewage. This is a plant in Stockholm. This is many other places, also in China, where the sewage is used for the biogas. Local treatment from Seoul. And this is Melbourne, the circulation of grey water. This is an interesting innovation. Mr. Obama, he visited Stockholm a few months ago. He asked if he could visit Hammarby, but out of security reasons, that was not allowed. But he didn't saw the system, he saw products instead. And this is a small container that is purifying water into drinking water out of sun. This is Swedish Prime Minister. Waste, another part of the toolbox, where in Sweden it's not allowed to put household waste on landfill. So we put about 1%, and this is going to be taken away. Half is incinerated and half is recycled. And I don't know if this is an accurate figure for the United States, but it's differences still. And you have to bring in those questions also when you are planning for new areas, also existing areas. There's number 4 in the hierarchy, Mr. Yi Senshen. He's a member of the standing committee, and he studied the wake and transport system in Hammarby. And I got 2 hours with him talking about sustainability, energy. And he knew a lot about it. The wake and transport system is also used in Seoul, for instance. 300,000 households are using the wake and transport system for garbage, for waste in Seoul. But it's a Swedish system. They have 80% of the world market. and exists on Roosevelt Island. But you don't need this system to sort garbage. It's a lot of other things. And not to forget the informal work with the waste, to sort waste, is very important. Back to the toolbox, information and communication technology. That can steer and guide a lot how we are using smart grids, etc. And this is surprising, at least for me. This is an information table about air pollution, and this one is in Tehran. I haven't seen anyone in Stockholm, or I think they exist in Europe, but still it's impressive to find it in Tehran. Of course, they have problems with air pollution. EU is promoting smart cities, and also big companies at Samsung, IBM, Siemens. And in their world, smart cities and sustainable cities are a little bit of the same thing. I don't agree, but it's an important part of it. Also in Japan. Administrative methods to integrate, to have the holistic and integrated planning methods again, bringing people with different competencies together, and also the public and private partnership working together. Because there is no one single expert who could sort of combine and develop the sustainable planning and design. This is to engage the people. This was a public hearing I made a presentation in St. Petersburg about a new residential area. And I was the only non-speaking, Russian-speaking person at this meeting, and they were quite angry with the politicians and the city architect, but very polite to me, and I'm glad for that. Another example, Lucerne in Switzerland, how to engage the local community into the sustainability work. And also to do what we should do. This is the waste baskets in many places. So that was about the urban tool, and I'm going to show that we are working a little bit with this in China, in Wuxi, but then also about Hammarby. This is also like in Xi'an, a 2 square kilometers large area. It takes 29 minutes with speed train from Shanghai to come to Wuxi, and it takes more than 29 minutes to buy the ticket, but if you don't know how to do it. But it's very impressive. We are working with local partners when we're working in China, and we're also working with the engineers in Sweden. And we are trying with this graph to describe how we have our toolbox here. It should be more items, but still water and waste and energy, and how this will affect on building level, city block, urban parcel, the whole area, and connect to the city. So you can follow the stream, for instance, the sewage water, what's happening. There will be biogas, and you can drive the bus, for instance. So the way to describe this. Or they have solar panels here, and it should be delivered to the grid, etc. And also the environmental performance standard. So those diagrams are telling how much energy a certain building, or how much energy you can use per square meter in year, for instance, or how much of the roof should be covered with photovoltaic panels, or should be green roofs, etc. It's a good way to sum it up. Also, part of this is more formal, detailed plans, the Chinese zoning, which is not very different, I think, from the American way to make zoning regulation. It's different from what we're doing in Sweden. And this is the Chinese part, and this is the our part, how we try to organize the buildings in a sort of block structure. And in China and India and many other places they're coming residential buildings, and they are in a beautiful park landscape in big blocks. And we would like to divide it into smaller blocks, housing not too many families around a shared space, etc. It's not easy because there's other regulation, building design regulations in China, also in Russia. So this is an example from Xi'an, how the master plan was looking, and this was our proposal. It's the same density, but another scale. It's a groundbreaking ceremony. So I talk a little about Stockholm and the Hammarby, and how Hammarby project is integrated into the city. Stockholm became the first green capital of EU 2010. I think it's Hamburg now. Oh, it has been Hamburg, and I think it will be Copenhagen. That's amazing how big the castle is compared with the medieval city. Who took the money? Tengbom office is here. This is PwC. There is a ranking of cities of opportunity, where Stockholm is number 4, New York, up to New York, Toronto, and San Francisco. So that's very nice. It's an honor, of course. Stockholm is situated between the Baltic Sea here, and this is the archipelago, and this is a lake system. So this is a strategic point to control this land and control the trade here. Great Stockholm has 26 municipalities and a little bit more than 2 million inhabitants. And the community or the municipality of Stockholm has almost 900,000 inhabitants. And Stockholm is organized with the old town, with a big royal castle, and the inner city from the 1800s up to 1920, and then the older suburbs, which were reached with light rail traffic, and then came the metro system and to those suburbs here. So that has formed the city of Stockholm, together with the islands and the water, Lake Mälaren and the Baltic Sea. The Baltic Sea has no tide, but it's still a part of the sea. And this is the walkable city, an overall plan for the municipality of Stockholm, how to densify at certain areas. Here's the Hammarby area, which is an extension of the inner city. This is the inner city, Hammarby again, and this is a commuter railway tunnel under construction under Stockholm right now. And this is another area which is called the Royal Seaport, Norra Djurgårdsstaden, which is a former industrial and harbour area. And this is also a former industrial and harbour area. Not well used. It was not well used. Today it's well used. This is a part of the commuter train construction, together with 2 metro lines. It's amazing to get this together. It will be open 2017. This is the Hammarby area. This is the inner city again. And this is an extension. And this is how it looked in 1997. It's 2 square kilometers big areas, including the water here. The land was owned by the city from the beginning. The work and the design has been organized by the city. And like 5 or 10% of the investments has been done by the city of Stockholm. But the rest has been invested by 33 different developers and a number of infrastructure companies operating here. And those companies are here because they think this is a nice business to be here. They would like to make money. So it's a really public-private partnership into this, where the private side is contributing more than the public side is doing. 97 again. Here is something missing. It's about the sustainability program, which was a part of the start of the development and planning and development of Hammarby. It was approved by the City Council '96, and by that time we didn't speak about the climate risk. And it's about synergies between energy, garbage, and water and sewage. And it's also about land use and energy saving and traffic planning, etc. And I mentioned the district heating. This is Greater Stockholm, and this over 100 kilometers from here down to here. And this is a number of grids that have been connected together. And 80% of all housing in Sweden is using the district heating system. And 80% of the fuel that we are using in the municipality of Stockholm is renewable fuel, which is very much sorted garbage, but also biomasses. And this is a co-generation system. So the district heating company is making electricity and making district heating at the same time. So it's a co-generation. And there is also a district cooling network in Stockholm. I think it's the second largest in the world. And that's with the climate we have in Stockholm, where the average temperature is 7 degrees. Both those systems are commercial. So the companies running this one and this one, it's a number of companies here and one company here, are operating commercial. So they are doing money on this. And this is the reason that we have rather low carbon dioxide figures in Sweden is the generation of electricity, which is very much hydropower, but also nuclear power. And I don't recommend nuclear power, but that's a fact. Another reason, important reason, is the district heating network that we have through Sweden. And we have had district heating operating in Stockholm from the beginning or the early 50s. And I think the district heating system in New York is older than that. We have been incinerating sorted garbage in Stockholm since 1971, so it's fairly old technique. And this is a plant in Hammarby, which is operating with heat pumps and biomasses, not with garbage. So it's located in the area. Another reason for good figures is that we have a fairly good public transportation in Stockholm and in Sweden. In Greater Stockholm, we have 100 metro stations on a population of 2 million inhabitants. It started to operate from the beginning, but it has been extended since then, 1950. So it's fairly old, and the trains again are running on green electricity. Then we have over 50 commuter train stations also. And compared with Beijing has 440 metro stations and a population with 20 million inhabitants. So we have more metro stations compared with the population than Beijing or Seoul has. We have a congestion fee in Stockholm, like in London, like in Oslo, like in Singapore. We have a referendum about this, and the majority of people of the municipality of Stockholm living outside the border here. But still there is a majority to pay a fee to get into the city with a car. That had reduced the traffic with 20%. And we have, it also had made the conflict between the professional drivers and the private drivers smaller. So the professional drivers like this system. They make their job faster and safer. They also generate resources for new investments in public transportation and road traffic. In Hammarby, here, we have a light rail extended into the area when people start to move into the area. Also, the light rail is running on green electricity, and it's also to walk over from the light rail to the metro system here in the edge of the area. More about energy. We have, of course, sewage water, and we have a sewage treatment plant just outside the Hammarby area here. And the sludge from the sewage water, which is a kind of biomass, if you like, it's bio. It's put in cylinders for an anaerobic digestion process, and which is making biogas after it's been refined. And there's CH4, which is the same chemical as natural gas, but during this anaerobic digestion process, it's binding carbon dioxide. So it's a loop with the carbon dioxide. And about 170 city buses in central Stockholm are running on biogas from the sewage water. So we don't have to import it or anything. And then sewage water is also warm water, at 17, 18, 19 degrees something. So there is heating in it. So with heat pumps, we're taking out heat from the purified sewage water in and put it in back to the district heating network. So we use it, and then we put some of the nutrients from the sewage water, into composting, but that's not very important. But we use the sewage water as an energy resource. That's important. And the biogas is refined at the sewage treatment plant, sold in Hammarby and other areas in Stockholm. And there are carpool or car sharing in Hammarby and also other places in Stockholm. And many of the cars are running on biogas. You can charge your car, your Tesla, if you got one, but you should charge it with green electricity, of course. And there is a market for green electricity in Sweden, so I buy green electricity for my apartment and my summer house. I don't know if it's available in US. It is. That's good. And then we have, to make it easier to sort garbage in the Hammarby, we have this waste management technique with a stationary wake and transport system, the INVAC system again. But again, you don't need it to sort garbage, but it helps. It's automatic. There is a computer in the terminal. This can be up to 2 kilometers long. And with the fans, it's with waking, transporting garbage from one chute, one pipe at a time. So the computer can tell that this chute is full, needs to be empty, and in a speed of 70 kilometers per hour, the garbage is moved into the right container. First, it's food waste, then after that comes packages, and in the end, newspapers that are also cleaning the pipes. You should not put car batteries and Christmas trees into this system. White goods are installed by the developers from the beginning in the apartments in Sweden as a system. Not all of it, but most of it. And it is in Hammarby energy classified from the beginning. Part of the environmental program is also to mix air into tap water. And that reduce the use of tap water with 25% without the households are really noticing this. And the point with this is not really to reduce the amount of drinking water, because we have a lot, as I think you have in Stockholm. But we would like to reduce the warm water, which is energy. So that helps. That's something for LA to think of. Low energy housing. We have by tradition fairly low energy housing in Sweden because of the climate. We have some winter nights in Stockholm with minus 25 degrees. So, we need to have well-insulated building. And we have been working with double-glazed windows since the 1700s, so double-framed. And I have triple-glazed in my summer house. So that's what you buy at the market. This building here is using, in reality, about 60 kilowatt hours per square meter a year. Has no radiators because it's well insulated, but it has a heat recovery system taking heat out the exhausting air and put it back to the fresh air. And it's more to be done here. But as we are constructing a few new buildings, we have to deal with the infrastructure systems. And of course, we have green roofs, some photovoltaic panels, some solar thermal panels in the Hammarby area. But the infrastructure is the answer to the energy and the carbon dioxide and resources in Hammarby. And also that it is a compact area and with well-insulated buildings. And part of the environmental program is the visitor center, or the environmental information center, Glashuset, means glass building number 1. This one has photovoltaic panels. They had a machine that could divide water into oxygen and hydrogen, and another machine that could store hydrogen together with some metal, which I've forgotten which it was. It used to have a fuel cell machine that could produce electricity for the building. And it had heat pumps in the basement and have double-glazed windows, double-glazed facades. And a computer is running this building. It's a test building, and it's a lot of fun technique here. But the answers to sustainability is maybe not so complicated as this building shows. And I can say that because I'm the architect to this building. So I have the right to say so. We have the environmental program for Hammarby, and then we have the master plan for Hammarby, which is the second important document. And the Hammarby urban design is based on the North European inner city design. There's a different, the traditional inner city has rectangular blocks with streets on 4 sides and a number of different buildings in one block. Here it's more like 1 or 2 buildings in a block, or 1 or 2 developers in a block, and the streets are on 3 sides, mostly around a block. And then there is a local small park adjusted to the blocks. So those 8 blocks are surrounding this small park. So that's the difference from here. But it's good access with car to every entrance door here. And then there is a view from this courtyard or from the apartments here up to the water, which is very popular for the people living there to have this. It's not more people living or more families living in a block here than they have a feeling for the other. If there is a family with children, small children, they have a feeling for who the other families with small children are in the same block. So it's about 150 or 175 apartments. And if you're a retired person, you have a feeling for who the other retired persons are. So there is a sort of community feeling here. If you construct a tower building, it's much more difficult to get the same feeling to who your neighbors are. So there is a grammar into the urban design. The red colors here are residential, and the violet are very often former industrial building. Now it's office use. This is 97, and this is the same site 8 years later. And there has been about 20 different developers engaged here in this picture. The size of the building is from 5 up to 8 stories. And here's the park, and access on 3 sides here. And there is a sort of hierarchy here from the private apartment, the half-private balcony or half-private staircase, to the half-public or semi-public courtyard, to the public street or the public park. So it's sort of organization. And there is more or less 2 buildings, 2 and 2, with some connection here, making a block. And there's a quiet side here, and it's a traffic side here. Most bedrooms are oriented to the quiet side. So there is a grammar in this. And if you have a child, the child might maybe be possible to move to another courtyard and see a friend there at a certain age. So this is a family-friendly oriented design. At least I think so. And there is about twice as many families with children living in this area compared with other areas. So it's really, it's many babies, I can tell. And this is how the area is organized. It's one main boulevard or 2. There's a spine through here. And there is a number of dead-end street cul-de-sacs here, with very little through traffic here or here. So this is a fairly safe, traffic-safe area. And this is another one, enclave, and so on. So it has to be organized. And again, here, I think it's 33 different developers constructing there, and 30 different architecture firms. This is a road that is sunken, today sunken, compared with the surrounding land here. And it's aligned with glass walls here, and with green bridges here. And also the landscapes architect have contributed here. So as it's sunken with the road traffic here, it's more quiet here. And that we will have a better value of the land here. So this is important, and it looks nice. And this is a ventilation tower for the traffic tunnel here. Light rail stop. This is it's trees in every street. This is the main boulevard, 37.5 meters wide. It happened to be that. So there's 3 meter of the sidewalk, and there is 2 cars, 1 tree, 2 cars, 1 tree, and there is a bicycle lane, and there is a vehicle lane, and there is a row of trees, and there is buses or light rail in the middle. And they happen to be 37.5 meters, which is a fairly traditional boulevard. And then we're coming to the local streets. They are about 18 meters, which is 60 feet, which is what the streets on Manhattan is. 15 streets, it's 60 feet wide, so it's a good. I think it's a little bit too narrow, because the front garden here could be a little bit more generous. So say 19 meters or something, it would be working better, 19 or maybe 20. The street side parking, which is much more efficient than to have garage places. If you calculate the area you use for the parked car, because it's using also this one, whether you're driving. But there is about 1/3 of the cars are street side parked, and the 2/3 are in garages under the courtyards, the shared space. bicycle lanes, of course, and you have a lot of bicycle lanes here. There's a bicycle and pedestrian bridge in stainless steel. Access here is important all over, of course. There's a block structure, there's a street structure, and there's a park structure. So there is always, or almost always, a green park around the corner. And this park here also happened to be 37.5 meters wide. I can't tell really why, but we sort of was a challenge to make this park the same proportion at the boulevard, and it worked. They are very different, but still the same proportion. Former industrial quay, pavilion, boardwalks in the reed. Otherwise, the shore here should be privatized, which it may not be. They are very popular to walk around. Quality is more important than quantity coming to public realm. And those details, this is stormwater gutter. It's very important. And not very expensive. There's a slalom slope next to the area. It's happened to be there. This is not from this year. We have had very little snow this winter. There's another part of the area organized after the same principles. There's a garage under here, and there's a skylight down to the garage. It's a shared space. This is how we organize apartments. There's 3 or 4 apartments around the staircase, and this is the street side, and this is the quiet courtyard side, where we have the bedrooms and the smaller apartments facing the quiet courtyard. We have different fire regulations, so I don't think it's possible to exactly design like this in the US. There is also bigger apartment than 2 beds. This is the service structure, so there is not really any main square in the area. It's a boulevard, which is the spine. And there is over 100 different cafes, restaurants, whatever you find. Also, those are schools, and those are daycare centers. Nine-year school, former industrial building, partly turned over to residential use here. This is also part of the plan. I don't know if it's going to be realized or not. There's a road into the city with a lot of traffic, a lot of traffic noise here. According to the plan and according to the calculation, it's possible to construct a tunnel through the hill here, through the rock, and have a quiet area here, and pay the tunnel with a new value of the land, at least in theory. This is completed or under construction, this one, but not the edge here. It's also rectangular blocks, but another form, a little bit higher density. It's about 115 apartments per hectare, or 130 apartments per hectare or something. If you have nice water views as here, it's not possible with the density. But it's very few towers into the scheme here. And this is a study I'm working with now. I'm now and then working with the Hammarby area. I was a part of the planning team for Hammarby. So I was hired as I'm a private consulting architect, and got a desk at the city planning department and worked with the team there. And as we in Sweden have a local taxation of income. This municipalities has fairly good economy in Sweden, and so it's attractive to work as a planner or an expert for the cities. And so they do a great job, and most of the credits for this job have to be given to the City Department of Stockholm and the City Development Department, because they have organized, and it was an honor for me to be a part of this team for 10 years. Now I'm doing a study to build over this road with new residential. It's secret, so don't tell anyone. It's not public anyhow, it's not secret. This is a list of developers and architects engaged here. So 101. There's a few more into this, but it's fairly many projects that is coordinated. This is area, part of the area which is under construction right now. And it's by Skanska, which is a Swedish company, but Skanska US is bigger than Skanska Sweden. And it's also even more compact than the previous. It has been a lot of meetings, but if you organize this with a project organization and bring in the right skills into this, it's very efficient. It's the areas is divided into sub-areas, and the people, the developers here, 8 developers here or six developers here, they are working together with the city and together with their architects and landscape architects and traffic planners and environmental specialists to do the design together. And so it's not right to give too much power to the public sector, and it's not right to give too much power to the private sector, according to my experience. Working together. And also there is a creative process between the different developers and between the different architects in those teams. And those teams are working together for maybe 1.5 years, start with a fairly rough sketch, and ends up with drawings which is almost ready to take into a building permission application. And this is a zoning plan as we do it in Sweden. It's an agreement between the city and the developers, but it's also the agreement between this developer and this developer. So they are very interested in what the neighbor is doing, the neighboring developer is doing. And I think there is sometimes some discussions between the developers that the city is not aware of. But that's a part of the process. Also, there is a generous attitude to share information. And the design guidelines, which are used for the approval of the building permissions, are made together in those teams. So there's also part of the agreement between the developers and the city and the politicians. The zoning plans and the design guidelines will be processed and are approved by the city council or the planning commission. Coordinating of architecture, building materials, colors, sun and shadow studies, because we are high up in the north. Landscaping is coordinated. It's very important. Pipes and trees are coordinated. Not always constructed where they are coordinated to be. Traffic noise analysis. Hazard risk factors. It's transports. This is the Royal Seaport. This is the newer Hammarby area in Stockholm. It's more ambitions coming to energy performance for the building, coming to sorting garbage and to smart grids. But in many ways it's similar to the Hammarby area. And of course the architecture is is more modern because it's a new area. But Hammarby area is still under construction. Former industrial area. And here's also a district heating and district cooling plant operating with heat pumps from the water here, which is a part of the Baltic Sea, and also a program for the smart grid, because we are generating more electricity than we are using. So with the smart grid solution, we can have a better balance and generate lesser electricity. Western Harbor in Malmö is also a very interesting example. Totally different architecture, but a very sophisticated, nice architecture, and also a sophisticated energy thinking here. With a windmill close to the area, aquifers to load warm water or cold water to store it for another season. I've read this book on my flight over to the US. Maybe you have seen this. It's written by a professor, Arjan van Timmeren, at the Technical University in Delft. It's talking about, you know this, it's talking about cities and environment, and in a little bit more philosophical way. So I can recommend it. I think this is important. And I show this always when I'm talking in China. I can promise you that. A developed country is not a place where the poor have cars. It's a place where the rich use public transportation. And that's true for New York, true for London, true for Stockholm, true for Paris. Thank you very much.
So we have time for a few questions.
I'm wondering how much of your landscaping is edible landscaping.
You mean in the area? In the Hammarby area? Or?
But, you know, just on your streets and boulevards, you know, like where people live.
I don't know the figures, but there is a standard for how many square meters green area you should have according to the number of apartments. And I think we have enough with green areas in the Hammarby area, according to the number of people living there. I can tell because I've seen how the parks are used. So it must not too little and not too much.
Other questions?
I noticed in one of your early slides you claimed that you had very little corruption in your public offices, and not that I can imagine you can propose a solution to corruption that what some of us might be fighting against to get at some of these goals, but I imagine the financial benefits that so many of these developers and architects are gaining. Have you been tracking that side of things much as far as a inspiration for folks who are more interested in the bottom line than anything else?
No, not really. I mean, the corruption side is we have very little corruption in Scandinavia by tradition, and I think it has to do with the scale of the society. If you're corrupt, you will be known for that. So I think that's the reason. But maybe we lose it in the international community.
You mentioned that Swedish citizens cities aren't the model for modern urbanism.
They are not, yes.
And could you talk a little bit more about what you mean by that?
I mean that European cities are fairly compact and have fairly good public transportation and are in many ways planned before the car took over. if you're coming to the more central parts, then we have suburbia as well. But many other cities, like Sydney, is planned together with a car, and that makes another city. And I think it's important to look at the fact that European cities are using lesser energy than American cities, for instance. My experience from China is that the cities are compact in a way, but also planned very much for the cars. That's why I'm showing this picture. So that we need the car, but we should not use it. I mean, we can have a car, but not use it. No, I mean, we need it for transportation of a lot of reasons, but we should also rely on an attractive, sustainable public transportation.
I think from the 1960s, it's probably where it kind of split. The European cities decided to go for public transportation and with less emphasis on the car, whereas in the U.S. and West and other countries went for the car with less emphasis on public transportation.
Yes, but if there is a tradition, if there was a tradition in the 60s for public transportation, it's sort of been extended. So if you have the tradition established, it makes it easier than change direction.
Yeah. Well, the U.S., some of the earlier cities in the U.S. had public transportation, but as the car became more and more prevalent, that transportation kind of went downhill a bit.
Yes, that's true. But you have also the movement to the suburbia, and now people are coming back to the central parts, also in the United States, and that has to do with many reasons, lifestyle reasons, etc. But it also to do with the two-income families, and which it's so difficult to live somewhere alone and using two cars and transporting kids and everything. So some of us are moving back to the cities. Yes?
You've done an excellent job of clearly presenting the value of projects like these, especially in terms of how they relate to densifying urban cores. I'm curious what you see as an appropriate model of development for more rural environments, especially considering how it relates to the conservation of open space.
How do you mean?
I'm curious what you think we should be doing in rural environments in terms of how our development model is occurring in those areas. I don't know if you're familiar with the way that rural environments have been developed in and around the United States, but you see this sense of an exploitation of the landscape, and I'm curious what strategies can be to help people to value that landscape. It could just simply be density, but I'm curious what your thoughts would be.
Yeah, I think there is many possibilities to densify many of our cities, and to find areas that actually could house more buildings. And it's not very difficult from a sort of geometric point of view, but there is always not in my backyard discussion into this. That's very much also in Sweden. But that's when you're going through, if you are coming through this process, I think the results very often talking for itself. So people are hesitating a lot during the process, but in the end they are quite happy with the change. And if we're talking about sustainability, I think we have to be working much more to densify our cities than we're doing, and also in Sweden, because it's easier to build somewhere else, and then we're using green fields instead of not so well used industrial or harbor or also the residential areas that could be densified. I think we are underestimating the possibilities, but there is a political issue here with it, not in my backyard, and it's, according to the legislation we have in Sweden, the not in my backyard movement has a lot of rights, and we are a little bit in an unbalance here. If we are, when we started with the Hammarby, the barrel of oil costed $20, and today it's $108, and some years from now it will be $200, and that would be more attractive and more necessary to have more densified cities. But it has to be done with quality, otherwise it would be a disaster.
Actually, might there be something in this model that is applicable to a medium-sized city? Like, for instance, if you had to sort of pick one of these elements. I know it's a synergistic sort of approach, but would a city like Eugene or Salem, this size, what would they be able to sort of apply this model and transfer?
I think it absolutely. I mean, the solution would not be the same, but the method with the toolbox thinking, and that you actually you have to consider all toolkits, and you could move also to a more densified also here, because you have a good street grid system. But I think an obstacle here is that it's a lot of one-family houses which have the site, and to remove them, some of them, it's of course a difficult process and a sensible process. But